12, and let the record reflect that voting members, Councilor Giovanni Rodriguez, Councilor Pavel Payano, Councilor Anna Levy, and Councilor Gregory Del Rosario are present. My job this evening is very simple. My job is to open up this meeting, as we typically do, and then the first order of business will be to select and nominate and select a chair. So as we do with all of our meetings, I will ask everyone to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Joining us this evening remotely are Councilor Anna Levy and Councilor Pavel Payano. This is our final organizational meeting of all of the committees tonight. Just some housekeeping things. Once we have the new chair, the chair will be needing to be here to monitor and to deal with the folks that are virtual and the folks that, and just to coordinate the meeting. That's not going to be able to be done remotely because of the configuration. And obviously, whoever is the chair, we do have, everybody probably knows this by now, but we do have a dedicated laptop for this purpose that remains here in the City Council office. And so whoever is the chair, please return the council laptop back near Teresa's desk or somewhere on the table, and that will be taken care of in time for the next meeting. As we mentioned, it's whoever is chairing tonight's meeting, it's important that they take this position over. We do have some folks who are here remote. Of course, one of the things we like to get people here in the audience so that we can have the meeting and have the discourse. And of course, there are some folks who have health issues, and we acknowledge and understand that. And we do what we can to accommodate when we can. And this is the reason why we changed the rules and have a hybrid meeting, so we can accommodate. With that, I am now going to look for nominations for budget and committee chairman. Is there a nomination?
Mr. President, I would like to nominate Councilor Pavel Payano as the chairman for the committee.
Great. We do not necessarily need a second, but I just need to confirm that Councilor Payano does, in fact, accept that nomination, and I will ask if there's any others as well.
I accept that nomination.
Are there any other nominations for Budget Committee Chairman? Hearing none, I will now call the roll. Councilor Anna Levy? For budget,
yes.
For Mr. Payano. Councilor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Councilor Del Rosario?
Yes.
And Councilor Payano?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. President. I will take the gavel for now. I want to thank my colleagues. My apologies. I have not be able to go in. You're going to hear that my voice is a little bit off, and that's why I'm not there with you today. But we'll move on to the second item, which is nominations for vice chair. Are there any nominations for vice chair? Opening up nominations for that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I would like to nominate Councilor Rodriguez.
There's a nomination for Councilor Rodriguez. Is there a second?
Second.
Nomination has been second. Councilor Rodriguez, do you accept the nomination?
I do.
Councilor Rodriguez accepts the nomination. We will now move on for a roll call. Councilor Levy?
Yes. Councilor Rodriguez?
Councilor Rosario?
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez?
Yes.
And the chair votes affirmative. Thank you. Congratulations, Councilor Rodriguez. Councilor Rodriguez, I'm gonna ask you for your assistance while I'm not there. And if you can help guide us through it, if it doesn't work, that we're not able to, kind of figure things out, then I will give up the gavel to you and have you run the rest of the meeting. But let's see how things work out. Does that sound good, fair to you?
You were referring to me? Yes, I can assist.
Yes, okay, all right, thank you, Counselor. So we'll move on to item, new business, item 422, request for FY 2022 appropriations transfers submitted by Raquel Ruano, City Attorney.
Good evening. My name is Raquel Ruano, and I'm the city attorney, and I have put forth this item.
Sure that, one second, Attorney Ruano, before you
Sure.
begin, I want to make sure that the camera is on Zoom. For you right now, we can't see the city council chambers.
I think that was your.
There is a lot of echo.
Mr. Chair, they're looking for another camera, so we're just on hold. Oh, okay.
You won't be able to sit. Gregory, do you mind?
Oh, to go in that seat, maybe?
Yeah. No, but then I won't be able to see you. I don't see you this way. I only see Gregory. I don't even see Gregory. But.
Oh, or maybe just like you see the back of my head and you see everybody else?
But this camera is attached to this computer.
Okay.
So for next week, I can get another one and put it up there so whoever's at home, instead of seeing you, I'll see them. This is the first time we get this kind of request. So.
Okay. All right. Is it okay to proceed? All right. I had put this matter before the city council, and it's a request that the city attorney's office has put in annually. As you know, that we are always asked at budget time to level fund our departments, even though our departments typically need more money than what level funding allows. So this year, as I've done in previous years, I'm requesting a transfer from free cash of $300,000 to be transferred into the litigation file, and that money will be used exclusively for the payment of outside counsel. We have outside counsel for several different types of cases, but the most notable and the biggest expense is our labor counsel. We currently do not have an in-house labor attorney. And for the past, I believe, 5 or 6 years, we have been using the outside counsel firm of Valerio Dominello and Hillman for a majority of our labor issues. They not only handle the day-to-day grievances and any arbitrations, but I think the bigger costs come from negotiations with unions for collective bargaining agreements. As we stand right now, we do not have any money in our litigation fund to continue to pay past our December 31st bills. So we will not have enough money to pay any outside counsels from January through the end of this fiscal year. I do know that there are several unions that have reached out to the city in order to begin contract negotiations because all the police contracts end in June of 2022. So we will be starting heavy negotiations with them, and we will need additional funding in order to pay for outside counsel to handle not only our regular general labor matters, but also the upcoming negotiations that we have. So for this reason, I'm requesting that there be a transfer of $300,000 from free cash into the city attorney's litigation fund. And I'm welcome to take any questions that you may have.
Councilors, are there any questions?
Yes, I do have a question.
So, Attorney Ruano, do you mind telling us what will make any difference on having an attorney that deal with this in-house, at least on some aspects that we might, and that way we might be able to reduce this amount of outside counsel that we have?
Of course, I have always advocated that we do need a second city attorney in-house who is by definition in the charter and our ordinances, our labor council. That position has been posted, and I have asked personnel to certify any applicants at least twice, and we have not received any candidates that have any labor experience whatsoever. That posting is still out there, but that would, even if we were to get one attorney, I think that would help in reducing the amount of outside counsel bills that we have. But in general, the firm of VDH, they probably have 4 attorneys that work for us. And the reason is, one pretty much specializes in fire, one pretty much specializes in police, another in laborers in DPW, and then one is more kind of like a catch-all. So even if we had one, I don't believe that one would eliminate the need for outside counsel, but it would definitely reduce it. But I know that the past administration under Mayor Kendris Vasquez, he did authorize me to post it to seek an outside counsel, and like I said, we did try and get 2 rounds of certified applications, and we haven't yet found a candidate that fits our needs. Essentially, anyone who has labor counsel, and I'm not really sure why that is. I'm not really sure if it's just at this point the workforce labor situation that I think a lot of employers find themselves in, or if it's something else. But we will continue to aggressively market that because it is a priority to bring that number down and to bring some matters in-house, because some of the matters are really low level that don't necessitate going out. But yes, to answer your question, it would reduce it.
Yeah, and we used to have a second attorney that is technically the attorney that deal with this.
Right.
Is that position required to be per charter or per ordinance?
Required to be what?
To deal with the to deal with the labor matters. Is that ordinance or charter needs?
Under the ordinance, it is that the second city attorney shall be the labor attorney.
So it's an ordinance, not a charter type of
Right, so in the
request.
charter, there is a labor council position, so I read them in conjunction with each other, but the actual language of that the second city attorney shall be our labor lawyer is in the ordinances.
So essentially, if we have that portion removed from ordinance, and then we're gonna need another attorney that deal with this labor council, that is not necessarily the second attorney, right? Let's say perhaps that we remove that portion of the requirement for the second attorney, and then the city will need another attorney that deal directly with labor counsel by itself.
I see what you're saying, yes. I mean, in theory, any of the city attorneys can handle labor. I think it's just in the because we're all non-union, in the non-union wage compensation plan, obviously, city attorney is at a higher wage than the first, then the second, then the third. So it goes down, and I do believe that a labor counsel should be paid what their value is worth, because it is really hard to find labor attorneys. But typically any of the city attorneys can do labor. I do know that between myself, Attorney Hooten, and Attorney Gina LaGreca, none of us have any experience in labor. So it is, we're picking up as we go along, but it's really low-level labor stuff, and we really need a dedicated labor attorney. But it could be any position. And I do believe that we are about to post the third assistant city attorney, as Gina LaGreca has moved permanently into the personnel, the director of personnel position. But again, the salary is commensurate with that level position, and it should be a higher paid, I believe, a higher paid, because we are looking for someone with relative experience in labor law.
So as of right now, I just saw the position for the third city attorney that it was posted today. So essentially, we have only 2 attorneys in the city.
Right now,
And
yes.
that's you and the first assistant, right?
That's correct.
And we are missing the second and the third.
That's
and
correct.
The second is the one that deal with labor council.
Yes.
So, and is the money for those 2 positions allocated on the budget, so it haven't been transferred to other things?
That's right. They're both allocated.
So where are we advocating? What sites perhaps are we posting those positions for the second attorney and the third? I mean, do you know right from the top of your head?
So the second city attorney has been posted for quite some time. And I believe it was posted on Indeed, it was posted on our city's website. I had asked that it be posted in, a lot of law schools have like an alumni career database. So I'd asked that it be posted there. One of the conversations that I've had with the current personnel director, is that the jobs that attorneys really look for are really posted in Lawyers Weekly, which is a weekly newspaper that's also online, that every lawyer I've ever known, they read it methodically. I mean, they have not only new case law that's come out, but it has job postings, and it has really everything that a lawyer needs to know. However, their fees are exorbitant, and what I've been told is that they do not have the budget to post there. So while we have maybe they had enough money to post the second city attorney position once, it ran for a week, and after that it doesn't run again. So unless somebody saw it that week, it doesn't show up again on the Lawyers Weekly. I'm trying to see if we can post the second and the third using money out of our budget, because it's really going to benefit my department, and I know that we have extra money in other funds, as in, we have a lot of stuff for travel, with COVID, everything's via Zoom, we're not traveling as much. So I know last year that money wasn't used at all. It seems like that's how it's trending this year, and if it could be better used in order to post that in Lawyers Weekly, I know that is where it's going to get most of the traction. But absent that, I do believe that those are really the only places that it's been posted, is online, in Indeed, and in a couple of the law school's alumni websites.
Because essentially this is basically what we're dealing with. Short personnel, we don't have anybody with the expertise that do labor counsel, and then we ended up having a $300,000 transfer that is gonna go against the city's free cash.
That's right.
So, thinking outside of the box, you also have half a year's worth of salary from the same position, which is basically the second city attorney. Can you use that money to advocate better, to see if we can, at the second half of the year, we might be able to get somebody in either one of those two positions?
Let me rephrase your question just so I can
So
see
essentially,
if
you
I'm
have
answering.
money, you have money from the second attorney position that it had never been filled.
That's correct.
So half of the year's worth of salary from that position is on your budget.
It is.
Can you use that money to advocate to be able to probably get somebody, to hire somebody for the second half of the year, which is from now to July?
Yeah, I mean, the money's there, so if I had a candidate for you today, we could hire them because the money is there. Are you talking about the salary range?
No.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
talking about to use that money that you have on the budget to advocate the position, for the position, and that way you can probably get somebody. Because probably nobody knows that we're hiring.
No, yeah, and that's what I would try to do, is use money that is otherwise going unused to try and see if we could use that money to attract somebody. Because, like I said, even if it's not in the personnel budget, it's to my department's benefit. And if that money, I think what happened last year at the end of the year is when that money wasn't used, I think it was transferred anyways over to our litigation account to pay for outside counsel. So I would prefer that it be used for what it's been appropriated for, because I do think that there's a benefit to having the city have someone in-house counsel. And so that's what I'm looking to do, is use some money that will otherwise at the end of the fiscal year go unused to attract candidates, because I think the methods that we're using clearly aren't attracting the qualified people.
We also have another resource that you might be able to publish it there, is the Massachusetts Municipal Association. They do have that MMA jobs
Yeah.
Site that they post different positions from different municipalities, and we are a member of that organization. So use that website, contact them, because they post it for you.
Yeah.
We know, I don't know if they have any fee, but if they do, it's probably low. Because we're already a member of the organization.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
post it there. I'm looking forward to see how are the hits. We might be able to get somebody.
Yeah, I'm hoping. But yes, no, I'll definitely look into that, because like I said, I think the more places that we can post, the more people we reach, and hopefully the better candidates we get.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
I have no more questions.
Are there any other councilors with questions?
I have a question. Sorry about that. $300,000, how do we come up with that amount, and how is it going to be used? I mean, do we have, how many hours is the lawyers are going to work? How many cases are they going to take? How are we going to divide that $300,000 between the lawyers that we're trying to use?
So how we came up with that money is we just looked on average how much we're spending each month. And based on that, we then subtracted how many bills we know we have outstanding versus how much money we currently have in the account. So saying we know we're going to get, we have $100,000, but we do 50 every month, 50,000. So we can go for 2 months with our current money, but that's only going to bring us to December. So then we will still have, 6 more months, with the several outside counsel firms that we have that are averaging around $50,000 a month between all of them. And so therefore, that's how we came up with the number, because I think what the administration's idea was, we don't want to come back down here again. We want to be able to adequately provide for the attorneys that we have, and we know how hard it is towards the end of the year to get the money, and so we try and be conservative, as that's how we do an average amount, and so that's how we come up with the number. And we also look at previous budgets to say, in past years, after free cash transfer, this is how much we've spent in litigation. And so we kind of track it, and we say, well, maybe we have one year that was an anomaly, but mostly every year we spend about somewhere between 500 and 600,000. When we level fund it, we get 225,000. So we always are missing a difference of around 400, somewhere between $300,000 and $400,000. So we do kind of like an average And we look at some historical information, and that's how we come up with the figure. But we do come up with a figure that typically is right on the money. It might be a little over, but what we end up doing is, if at the end of the year we end up having $30,000 extra, we keep it for the next year because we know that we're still going to have outside council bills, and so we still use it for the same purpose for which we're asking you to appropriate it now.
No more question, thank you.
Are there any other councilors with questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Councilor Levy.
So this is the amount that you needed up to the end of this fiscal year, or do you think that you're going to need more money from the free cash?
No, we're anticipating that, we're anticipating that this is the amount that we will need to carry us through the end of fiscal year. So this money should be enough to last us with the amount that we were originally given back in July. This should carry us through June 30th, 2021. 2022, I'm sorry.
I couldn't hear what she said in the middle.
So it sounds like what Attorney Ruano is saying, that this is what they believe they need for until the end of the fiscal year.
That's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Councilors, there are no further questions. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to send it to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
I'm trying to, Mr. Vice Chair, if you can remind me, do we have, we have to do a roll call. So we'll call a roll call vote. Councilor Levy?
Yes.
Councilor Rosario?
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Chair votes in affirmative. We now move on
Thank you.
to item 1222, request for fiscal year 2022 appropriations transferred, submitted by Diane LeBlanc, City Clerk. Madam City Clerk, I see that you are coming up. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of the committee. My name is Diane LeBlanc. I reside at 55 Berkeley Street in Waltham, Massachusetts. I am here this evening in my capacity as your city clerk. I hope you all have the original document that was sent to the committee, and perhaps have an annotated copy, which I provided to Teresa earlier today. The document sets forth the amounts of money that I'm asking for in the various accounts, but what the annotated copy did is it lets you know exactly how much money is in that account right now. And just in case you don't have it, I'm going to walk through it. The first $30,000 that I'm asking for, in that particular account, there is currently, as of today, $788.16. That is the account that pays for the city council's public hearing notices. That account started with $20,000 at the beginning of the year. Again, there is $788.16 left. That's a little misleading because we have only paid our bills through November. So when the December bill comes in, we probably won't have enough to cover it. So that $30,000 that I'm asking for is again for City Council to ensure that we are able to pay for proper public hearing notices. What I've learned is that we may have been taking some shortcuts on our public hearing notices and perhaps abbreviating some things that really going forward we shouldn't. For example, a loan order. If we are publishing a loan order, we should publish it in its entirety, every single word. Well, every single word costs extra money. So that's what that $30,000 is for. The next two amounts of money being requested really in office supplies and operating supplies, and this is for the city clerk's office upstairs. Between those two accounts, we have less than $1,200 left. I'm asking for $2,000 in one and $6,000 in another. The majority of that will cover basic supplies like paper, copier paper, toner, pens, pencils, pads, things that I have had to go to Staples and buy myself, just because we haven't had them in the office. But the bulk of that will go to buy some storage boxes. If you've been into our office recently, I hope that you see a little bit of an improvement in terms of an office cleanup and organization of records. We have taken records that have been everywhere on the floor, on top of shelves, and really tried to get them organized in a proper fashion, and we need to be able to purchase some proper storage containers to do that. So that's what that money is going to go for. That takes care of the first three items. Item number 4 is in elections, and it's $10,000 to cover printing and mailing for the postage machine in the elections division. In that particular account, as of this morning, there are $0. We need funding in that account because we need to be able to be prepared to communicate with the residents of the city, especially around re-precincting and other important matters. So that's where that $10,000 is going. And then the next item, $20,000 for the annual listing. That's the annual city census and the annual street listing. Well, currently available in that account is $1,000. In order to cover the mailing costs associated with the annual city census, it is going to be a minimum of $20,000. I need, in order to meet our timeline, I need to get a check to the United States Postal Service for this amount of money ASAP. I will also say, even making copies of the annual city street listing. That is a statutory obligation to produce that. The City of Lawrence did not produce it in 2019 and did not produce it in 2020. So those are some things we're looking to catch up on. The total request is for $68,000, and I respectfully ask for your consideration.
Councilors, are there any questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Levy?
Hi, Ms. LeBlanc. I would like to, how many elections do we have this year?
So I'm not getting the question. How many elections do we have this coming year? Oh, so this past year, we had 2 elections. We had a preliminary in September, and we had the general in November.
So this is just for the whole year up to November, or this is only to the fiscal year? The request that you've been doing?
So Councilor Levy, so all of this should be up to the fiscal year, because at the end of the fiscal year, if there's any money there, it goes into free cash. If there's any money in these items, so this is between now and July.
But this is from the but this is from the free cash that we are.
Right.
Correct.
So there are.
Any of these line items, if they, excuse me, if any of these line items are not used by the end of the fiscal year, it comes back.
It's come back to the, okay.
Yes.
All right.
So, Madam Clerk, just to verify, this is the amount of money that you believe that you'll need between now and this fiscal year, or is it just between now and like the next month or two?
So this quite honestly is I believe a guarantee for now and the next 3 months. Certainly with regard to the last category, the $20,000, that's going to get us through taking care of the annual city census and producing the proper street listings. The $30,000 should get us through the year in terms of public hearings. But again, in that area, we are focusing on cleaning up the gap. Whereas you know, many public hearings that were supposed to have been ordered fell through the cracks. We're cleaning those up, and there's going to be more of them. But I do believe $30,000 should cover that. I think where we may be coming back in for some additional money is in some of the other categories. But that would be associated with identifying particular projects that needed to be done. One of them that comes to mind is addressing the city's ordinances. The ordinances of the city have not been sent to Municode since mid-October of 2019. So I'm actually very happy to stand before you and report that this week we sent Municode the ordinances from mid-October, November, and December 2019. We also sent them all of the ordinances that the City Council passed in 2020. Now, they don't publish those out of the goodness of their heart. There's a cost associated. So I wait to get that bill. Then we are going to be working on sending them everything from 2021, right? So all of that adds up. I'm hoping that I have enough funding to cover it. But if I see the expenses start to come in and it's not adequate, I will be back here before you asking you for what I need.
No more questions. Thank you so much.
Councilor Rodriguez, I believe you had your hands raised.
Yes, I do. Madam Claire.
Council, maybe if you, I will hear better without maybe the mask. I'm having difficulty. Thank you.
Madam Claire, I have a few questions for you. The first one that comes to mind is that we need $30,000 for public hearing, and I just want you to clarify a little more about the statement you made earlier in terms of the publications. So can you add a little more as of
So
when you
on the
have
public
solo
hearings?
work and stuff like that?
Sure. At any given council meeting, we might not have any public hearings, or coming up at the next city council meeting, we have 3 public hearings, and it's not unusual to have 5 or 6 public hearings, right?
More like you mentioned that it has been done in a runway that solo work cannot be combined or something you mentioned earlier.
So trying to maybe save money and shorten the public hearing, is that when I referenced, a loan order, right? A loan order can be very detailed and very lengthy, but that's something that's very important, and we've learned from bond counsel that it is best and in the city's best interest to print every single word, right? So we need to take that loan order and print it in its entirety. So whereas an advertisement might have cost $400, might end up costing you $600. I mean, advertising in the Eagle Tribune is not cheap.
Now that you mentioned that, there is, you just mentioning that, are you using other newspapers?
We are not. We were using a different source. They stopped doing it. That was prior to my coming here. And now the engagement is with the Eagle Tribune and the Eagle Tribune only.
But they were using, and as far as I know, they never stopped. So you can use either of the 2 newspapers that are available in the area, because they both are in English. So Rumble and the Eagle Tribune, they are available. So why don't you use both?
So Counselor, with all due respect, I am happy to double check on that, but when I came here, I was told Rumbo was not providing this service anymore since they went online, and that the Eagle Tribune was the only game in town. But I am happy to pursue that.
Yes, please. And if they are if they are not doing it for any particular reason, it's important to notice that in case something change in the future, so we can go back and use either or. Rumbo is a very available newspaper in Lawrence, and it doesn't require subscription. Different than the Eagle Tribune, that you need a subscription for you to be able to read it. That right there probably not allow people to read the publications that we pay so expensive sometimes. So I don't know if it is expensive, but I mean, just saying.
Counselor, I'm happy to check that out.
Thank you, appreciate it. And I have a few other questions. Did you request on these budgets or these transfers the possibility of you having a color printer?
You can't see me, Counselor, but I'm smiling under this. And I know that Mark Ianello is listening, and this is certainly something that I've requested. I've made my wishes known to the administration and to anybody who will listen to me. It is not in here. These are immediate needs that I think we're going to be in trouble if we can't fund. It's not on my top of the list wish list. And again, that may even come out of a different budget, but certainly it's known within the administration that the city clerk's office needs a color printer because of the work we do for constituents. And it's nice for everybody to hear that we have some council support for that.
So essentially we need it, right?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so with that said, councilors, I would like to cordially put a motion to send correspondence to the mayor, which is the only authority to have expenditure power, or, yeah, to look into this situation, to be able to have the city clerk a color printer for the city and constituents to take advantage of. So I would like to make that as a form of a motion.
Second.
The mayor has been seconded by Councilor Levy. We will now move on to a roll call vote. Councilor Rosario?
Yes.
Councilor Levy?
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez?
Yes. Yes.
Four votes in affirmative. Councilor Rodriguez, you still have the floor.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. So, Madam Claire, are you able to find out whether or not we can merge some of these mailings that you need to do with other departments, perhaps that they already mail out letters to constituents and to citizens?
So the bulk of this here, that $20,000, is the annual city census. That's not something that by statute can be merged with anything else. We don't do a lot of mailings just sort of arbitrarily, right, that aren't really focused on a particular gotta get the information out now issue. So for example, once the state updates our re-precincting, right? They've approved our re-precincting maps. Now that information is with the Elections Division at the Secretary of State, and they are updating their voter registration and information system. That should be done by the end of September. We then get that data back, but we need to do the communication to let people know that their district and or precinct is different, right? I guess nothing is out of the realm of possibility, but that's an important communication. I don't want to get it lost with a water bill or a tax bill or something else. I think your point is well taken for some other things that we might want to try to communicate around. But for the things that this is intended to cover, these are very focused, and I wouldn't want to combine them with other departments' mailings.
Understood. Can you, while you're having these conversations with the water bill, with the tax bill, that those are things that goes out every quarter, can you see what type of things could be merged on those mailings, so we can start advocating more and probably mailing things that we probably do it when we have the time on top of us and we are in a rush and so far.
Absolutely, Counselor. There
any
might
type
be
of information like
opportunities
that?
there. Absolutely. And I would say long-term, I would look for someday for our mailing budget on the city census to be reduced if we can get to a place where those who are so inclined, if there were no changes in the household, could actually complete the census online and could respond that way, which a lot of communities have moved to, right? If there's no changes in the household, they're just able to go in, log on, and boom, their information is transmitted.
So, and that's a great point, because what we can do the mailing is for the reminders of people that haven't done it online, and not necessarily have the only options to do it online, but instead probably advance the date to do it online, and then after some other dates, and then we mail out the rest of the people that haven't responded yet at that point.
We could be there next year, Counselor, but we're not there for this year.
No, not this year. But I mean, what I would like to see somehow, one or another, that next year we don't have this, so that we did the proactive work of either merging the mailing or go online, like you mentioned, which is a great option. I wish that I can do that, because putting that mail on the mailbox to me is like, this is one of the only few mails that I do. And sometimes I'm late, so that means that I could be on the, an active list, and yes. I don't want to have that. So if I have it online, trust me, I'll do it online, because I mean it's difficult sometimes. I mean, things are difficult for some people, and other things are so difficult to others. But yes, I would like to see if we can proactively move that direction next year, and that will be a great accomplishment.
That is one of our goals.
Thank you so much. I have no more questions.
Any other councilors with questions? Hearing none, is there a motion, councilors?
I'll make a motion to send it to the full council for, do I have to mention each individual transfer, and assuming that each need a motion?
I think that you can approve them as a group.
I would like to send, I would like to make a motion to send all these transfers as a group to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Hello.
Councilor Levy, we can hear you.
Hello.
Councilor Levy, we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you. Did you have a question, Councilor Levy?
It's not a question. It's just only a recommendation regarding something that Councilor Rodriguez say.
Okay.
Before we do.
Sure.
I was trying to speak before we do the motion.
Okay, yep, just 1 second. I'll give you the floor. Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
Okay, the motion's been seconded by Councilor Levy. Councilor Levy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's just to remind, yes, that we should use the Hispanic newspaper, Rumbo, in here, because just remember that we are a Hispanic community. Most of the people speak Spanish, to speak English. And they should be looking, more on the Hispanic newspaper than the English newspaper. That's what I was trying to say.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Levy. Well,
I don't know, say, Ms. LeBlanc here.
Yep, it sounds like, I think, Ms. LeBlanc, Ms. LeBlanc, did you hear the comment from Councilor Levy?
I'm sorry,
Did you hear the comment from Council Levy?
what is the?
Did you hear the comment from Council Levy?
Councilor Levy wanted to know about the putting of the Spanish-speaking population and putting things in, I think in Spanish media, is that right?
So Councilor Levy, I think that would be a wonderful thing to do. We don't have a translation service for all of our materials right now, and I believe if we were to send it, we would need to send it in Spanish, and we don't have that capacity in the city clerk's office. We are translating everything in our elections division, and I mean everything. If we're producing it in English and in Spanish, and to Councilor Rodriguez, who had requested that all of our training materials also be produced in Spanish. Those have all now been translated. But in terms of public hearing notices, those are have been and remain in English only. I think.
Just a point of information to help the discussion. I believe that Rumbo, you send it in English, and they will do probably not an official translation, but informational translation for the people. So, but you just need to worry about the English portion of it.
And
Madam Clerk,
again,
just,
I am absolutely happy to pursue that. I was told Rumbo wasn't providing the service anymore, but it's on my list of things to look at.
Madam Clerk, I think it would be great, I know you mentioned this earlier, I think it sounds like you have to do some research on your end to see what's possible. And I think, doing that research and then coming back to us, we definitely could be a resource to you as well, if you want us to be a sounding board on this. I would second the comments from Councilor Levy and Councilor Rodriguez as to the importance, but at the end of the day, it's what's possible, and I have full confidence that you'll be able to kind of figure that out, reaching out to Rumbo and making sure that we are, if whatever we can use them for, that we're able to check off all the legal pieces that we need. So thank you for that. So we will now move to a roll call vote.
Mr. Chairman, if I might just add to this point, there is an opportunity if the council, if the legislative body were so inclined to change the charter so that public hearing notices could be put on our website. And that was the source for promotion. Our website has a translation option, and that's an easier way to get it out, to save money, and to truly reach more people in the city of Lawrence. But as you say, a lot of things to consider. But I do want to just assure councilors and assure the public that everything that goes out of our elections division, everything around the city census, everything that we send out is in English and Spanish.
We'll now move on to a
Thank
roll
you.
call vote.
Yeah, before you go to the, before you call the roll call, Mr. Chair, a quick last minute then.
Go ahead, Councilor.
All right. So, can you, Madam Chair, can you find out what community have moved so far on these directions of publishing those publications in the website. Can you give us, probably do some type of research to find out how many communities in the state have moved that way?
I can try to find out that information, perhaps through the City Clerks Association or the Town Clerks Association. But what's restricting it here in Lawrence is the charter, right? Back in 2015, the former city clerk and this council body, I believe, took action to designate the website as the official posting location for public meeting notices. We continue to use the bulletin board outside the city clerk's office, but always post on the website. And that was some official action that was taken. I've not been able to find the real paper trail on it, but the city attorney did some checking and found that it had been approved by the state back in 2015. But it only applies to our public meeting notices because our charter prohibits it from applying to our public hearing notices. But Counselor, I will do some research.
So just as a point of information, I think this is an item that when we reviewed the charter, it's something that we touched on. So I believe we're going to be bringing up the charter again for a vote or a discussion early February. So hopefully soon, once that passes, this piece we'll be able to check off. So just want to make sure that folks were informed of that. So we now move on. Roll call vote. Councilor Levy?
Yes.
Councilor Rosario?
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Yes.
And the chair votes in affirmative. Thank you, Madam Clerk. We will now move on to the next item.
Thank you, counselors.
Item 322, request to expand grant funds up to $27,685 under SORB address verification program. And we have former City Councilor, Director Eileen Bernal with us to talk about this grant. Director Bernal?
Thank you, Council, and congratulations on your new chairmanship. Definitely appropriate. Document number 3-22 is a grant for $27,685. It's a reimbursement grant for overtime. It allows officers to verify addresses of sex offenders in the community in the city of Lawrence, which we are required to do. So basically, the state is providing us with funding that we would otherwise be paying officers to do either for our own overtime or through taking them off patrol to do it. So it's a really great resource to be able to utilize. It is headed up by a sergeant, and there's 2 patrol officers that work with him on that. And so basically, we're looking for your approval at this time to expend those funds in that manner.
Councilors, are there any questions to this item? Hearing no questions, is there a motion?
Motion to send it to the full council?
With a favorable recommendation?
Yes.
There's a motion to send it to the full council with favorable recommendation by Councilor Levy. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Councilor Rodriguez. We move to a roll call vote. Councilor Rosario?
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Councilor Levy?
Yes.
And the chair votes in affirmative. We now move on to item 622, request to accept funds up to $995,000 under 2022 Massachusetts Municipal Public Safety Staffing Grant. Director Bernal.
Thank you, Chairman. So annually, the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security has been awarding the City of Lawrence this municipal staffing grant. This grant specifically allows us to send recruits to the academy, to pay their academy tuition with that money and their supplies while they're there, as well as their salary while they're there. It also allows us to pay the salary for new officers in their first 6 months on the job. And finally, it allows us to pay for overtime, for certain specific overtime patrols. So this is an award that we have gotten. We are grateful to the state for giving us this tool. It basically was initially aimed to get our staffing levels back up to where they should have been after some big layoffs in 2010, and has allowed us now to keep those staffing levels in place. And that's why it's called the staffing grant. But again, we're asking your authorization to expend those funds in that manner at this time.
Thank you, Director Burnell. Director Burnell, can you let us know how many officers does this pay for them to go to the academy?
It really will pay for as many as we had. So like last year, we had 5 officers go through the academy between July 1 and November, and it paid for them, paid for their equipment, their tuition, and so it paid for all that. And then we had 5 officers come off and be new officers, so paid their salary again from that July 1 through December 31st timeframe. So right now we expect to be sending, I believe we sent 7 officers to the academy. I think 1 may have left. And we're hoping that they're going to do a second academy right away. Like usually Northern Essex is running 1 academy at a time. There was a new civil service list that just came out. So there's a lot of young qualified officers that are desirable, and we have a lot of retirements. So we may be able to run a second academy if the college is doing it. So right now we're sending 6 or 7, probably another 6 or 7 for a total of 13 to 14 total through this, and that will all come through the staffing as well.
Oh, that's great. Councilors, are there any councilors with questions? Hearing none, councilors, is there a motion?
Make a motion to send it to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion to send it to the full council with favorable recommendation by Councilor Rodriguez. That's been seconded by Councilor Levy, and we move on to a roll call vote. Councilor Rosario.
Yes.
Councilor Levy.
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez.
Yes.
Chair votes in affirmative. We now move on to our next item. I'm sorry, I have a
722.
Change it, line item 722, request to expend grant funds, $250,500 from EOPSS Shannon Grant.
Thank you, Councilor. The item number 7-22 is the Shannon Grant. Basically, this is a grant that targets at-risk youth, which is very different from proven risk youth. At-risk youth in the community, which are programs that you're all familiar with. There's programs through the Boys and Girls Club, the YMCA, the YWCA, ACT, CTP, which just changed the play, the CSU Center, Family Services of the Merrimack Valley, and Lawrence Methuen Community Coalition. So we have these 7 partners. We provide them with funding. They directly run the programs. They report back to us on their program management, and we try to assist them. We also run our open gyms through this program, through this grant. And but it's basically trying to give kids an alternative to the streets. It's mostly after-school programs that are run through these 7 partners, and then we run our junior police academy through this. We run our open gyms through this. So the full award is the $250,500. That is spread among the 7 Shannon partners. Again, this is a reoccurring grant that you guys have all been extremely supportive of in the past, and we're grateful for that support. And again, we're asking you to allow us to expend those funds in the manner that's authorized by the Shannon Grant.
Great. Councilors, are there any questions? Councilor Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a few questions. So I would like to get a request to specify a list of services that we're providing in all of these organizations as of how they are spending this money. So there is about, 5 to 6 organizations that are going to provide service, right? Ms. Bernard?
Councilor Rodriguez, you have the floor.
Did you hear me before?
Yes, no, we can hear you, Councilor Rodriguez.
So I would like to have a few things, but the first thing I have is to, for the next council meeting that we're going to actually see this, I would like to get a list of services that are being provided by the different organizations that are listed that are going to be awarded with this grant. So is that something, Ms. Bernard, that we can do?
Absolutely, Council. I can have that list to you tomorrow. When I write the grant, each partner gives me their narrative, which specifically describes their different programs. So I have that. I just am not at my desk right now, but I will get that to you first thing in the morning. I'll send it to all of you. You'll have that, no problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And also, can you add how we're splitting the funds as well per organization?
Sure. It's, each program got $22,000, but I can make sure that that's in writing when we send you those documents as well.
Thank you. And part of my questioning will be about or around what are we doing for those kids that are not yet at risk, but they might be at risk, and what those organizations are doing to work proactively to reduce that amount of kids that we provide in services with this type of grant and other that we receive in the city of Lawrence for at-risk kids. So that is something that we can work. What I'm trying to do here is basically try to figure it out the way that we can work, instead of working reactively, work proactive with these kids that might be at risk at some point. The fact that we have partnership with these organizations, what are they doing to ensure that, or what are we doing as a city with these or other organizations to ensure that our kids don't get to that point, or if we're doing anything. I mean, I know that through the CDBGs, we actually provide funds to different organizations, and some of those organizations are perhaps organizations that deal with kids, but there is so many other organizations up there that are not working on partnership with the city. So there is a way that we can actually figure something out that deal with not quite those kids that are at risk at the moment, but if they might be at risk at some point.
I think when we use the phrase at-risk, it sounds worse than it is. To be an at-risk youth is a very low bar under the grant. So these programs are able to help any child. But obviously we offer limited funds, so they can't help every child. So like specifically, the Boys and Girls Club uses this to run one of their summer programs, but they're running programs throughout the year that aren't funded by us, that are funded by other grants. So I understand the question, Counselor. I can ask the different participants. I guess you're asking about what other programs they run. Am I understanding that correctly?
Well, essentially what we're doing as a city to ensure that these organizations and maybe other organizations, what are they doing to ensure that kids that are maybe at risk at some point, that they don't become part of the list of at-risk kids?
Okay, that's a little, bigger question, but I will work on getting you an answer on that as well.
Yep. And the reason behind that question is because we have other organizations that we now partner with, that they're doing a great job with the kids. And there is sport organizations, perhaps Sueños Basketball. I know that we award them with a few $1,000s out of the CDBG's funds. We have Mercedes Academy, that they're dealing with more than 150 kids that they're doing baseball. We have Beyond Soccer that are dealing with more than 300 kids around the city. That they're doing the right thing. So what are we doing? Because traditionally we're working with these organizations all the time. But what are we doing as a city to work proactively to ensure that, taking another approach might also help out the situation with the at-risk kids?
Okay.
Councilor Rodriguez, any other questions?
That will be all my questions. Thank you so much, and thank you, Ms. Bernard, to kind of ensure that we're probably going to get an answer on this.
Okay. Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you, Councilor Rodriguez. On that line of questioning, just a suggestion, Director Bernal. I think it would be great for us to, as you're thinking through, maybe it's already been defined, the organizations that we are working on for this year. And if that's the case, sort of, it is what it is. But if there's an opportunity to kind of relook at that, I would think about some of these other smaller organizations that have as big an impact as some of like the big organizations. For these smaller organizations, a $22,000 grant, you might be able to see a lot more bang for your buck. So for example, Sueños Basketball, I remember the first time I visited their one of the sessions that they had, there were close to 60 teenagers from many of them from Lawrence High School in the midst of it was snowing that day, and I asked the coach, I'm like, how much do you charge for people to be in that program? He told me, and he's like, but really, I take, kids will give me $1 for the week, or they might just come in for free, because the important thing is to take them off the street. And that's something that I deeply valued. And I think that for some of these smaller organizations, some of them are the ones, Councilor Rodriguez mentioned, they won't, it's hard for them to find 22,000. For a big organization like the Boys and Girls Club, like, yeah, of course, $22,000, they would appreciate that. But I think they also have the network and the capacity to find that money elsewhere as well. So it's just something I think to think about, and definitely I think there's an opportunity to ensure that there are the LPD is working with other players besides the ones that are named right now. So if in the future, if you can just keep us abreast of that, I think that would be great. Councilor Rodriguez, I saw your hands raised.
No, and just more questions and more questions come up after we keep on talking about the situation, because sometimes it's frustrated that smaller organizations are not quite up there to probably know how the system works, apply for the money, or so far so on. But I know something for sure now that you mentioned the Y, and you mentioned Sueños Basketball. I know that they have a partnership. Sueños Basketball need to pay to use the facility of the YMCA sometime to be able to do that program that you mentioned, that sometimes is even for free. And those are the type of things that we as a city need to kind of look into it, create those partnerships that actually allow others, third parties, to open the conversation between them, and help the kids. At the end of the day, what we want is to help those good kids that are not necessarily at risk, because what we're doing essentially, so far I remember $1 million basically that are going to at-risk kids, and 2 different grants in the last 4 months that we have received. But what are we doing with those kids that are not quite there yet? Let's open that conversation, and that's basically what I would like to see one day, that we're moving on that direction. And I feel like not having that conversation at moments when we have money allocation, it's like basically we're not going to have that conversation if it is not at this point. And it is not necessarily everything needs to deal with you, Ms. Bernard, or the police department, but you guys are the one coming in front of us for money allocation. There was $750,000 2-3 months ago that went to Esperanza organization, not Esperanza Academy. It was the other, the Lawrence Development Charter School, and
The CSU Center.
The CSU Center, yes, essentially. And other organizations that have come in front of us that also are good partners, but I would like to see something related to that relationship being developed throughout, organizations that don't deal necessarily with that risk, but sometime they could be organizations that might identify a kid that might need some help too.
Thank you, Councilor Rodriguez. I agree with your statements. Councilor, is there, if there's no further questions?
Gregory has a question.
Councilor Rosario?
I mean, I just want to add to it. Always wonder how they pick these organizations. I mean, here, me and Lawrence, I can see the organization that are actually working. Mary Mavali have so many girls now getting pregnant and graduating from high school. We're not helping them. Again, Sueño Basketball, he actually drive a van to drag these kids out of the projects, and they out of this grant or whatever. Who picked this organization? How do they get to us? I mean, the Girls and Boys Club is a great place, but everybody knows them. But are they having a successful track records? Are they graduating kids? They taking the kids out of the street? When the kids don't show up to the programs, do they go out and chase them? So I think that we need to look into these small organizations and trying to help them out too, or grabbing into this group so they can get benefits out of it. That's all I want to add to it.
So I believe, so Councilor Rosario, just to rephrase your question, you're interested to know how did Lawrence Police Department determine their current partners? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's part of the question, because also Lawrence Police Department participate in lots of the programs that the Sueño Basketball does and Merrimack Volley does. They participate on it. So at the end of the day, and they see in the success records that this organization have, they still don't, I mean, I don't know. They don't know how to apply for it. They don't know how to get to it. But none of us are doing our diligence to show them how to get to this money, to help them. But they actually tracking the kids. They're getting the kids out of the projects to get to this program. Like you say, they're charging $1. They don't charge any money. If they don't have money, they don't charge them. And you see the coaches asking us, or asking everybody in the community for money. And I wonder, how can they not bid in this? I mean, how can they not get a piece of the pie, or we're not teaching them how to get a piece of the pie of everybody else is getting?
So, Councilor Rosario, I just want to say kudos for stating just that. One of the other hats that I wear, I do a lot of advocacy in sort of like the philanthropic networks. And last week, I just had a meeting with, a big funder in Lawrence, and that's one of the conversations that I was having with them, that a lot of these smaller nonprofits, one, they don't know, like they're doing the work, right? Like they're taking money out of their own, the leaders there are taking money out of their own pockets, out of their own family, to do whatever they can for the city of Lawrence. But either one, they don't know how to access capital that's out there. They don't have access to those networks. And there's this level of advocacy that needs to occur both on their end and also on the funders' end as well, to ensure that they're looking at everybody and they're giving everyone an opportunity. You know, some of these bigger nonprofits, they have, your Ys, right? Your YMCA, right? Like they have a dedicated team of individuals that does development, right? So there's like 3 or 4 individuals, or 2, 3 individuals. That's all they do all day, and they handle from small grants to big grants. Whereas these smaller nonprofits that we're mentioning, like whoever, the coach for the volleyball, like he's doing everything. You know, like they're applying, they're executing, it's a 1-2 person shop. But I think so. One of the questions that you asked, Rosario, that I'm wondering, Director Burnell, that you might be able to answer is how were these partners chosen? Was there a process that you guys went through in sort of picking these organizations?
Yes, Councilor. We have a process that we work through with the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security. And what we do is, even though it's an annual contract that we come before you each year, I believe it's a 5-year contract with the state that we're all under. So we did, post it. We did, similar to what CDBG does do in January, to let people know about how these grants work. We had run a workshop, and there was criteria, and off the top of my head, I don't have all of them, but you had to have active programs working with the youth. And things that got you more points were if you had access to, you didn't even have to offer them in-house, but have access to like partner with mental health services, offer food services. So that does lend itself to a bigger partner. And again, we're using the term at-risk youth. I do think some of the programs that you're mentioning would probably qualify. At-risk doesn't mean you are on probation or anything like that. At-risk can actually be you are in a high poverty area. So it doesn't have to be, that individual child has had problems. It's exactly the kind of kid that Counselor Rodriguez was describing, a child that hasn't been in the system yet, that could be leaning that way. So I do think making sure that some of these small agencies that you're mentioning, I'm familiar with a lot of them. Like my children have used Sueños basketball. It's excellent. I do think that making sure those agencies are more aware is something we can definitely work on. And as you mentioned, this application is done. We started in September. We get their input in October. We file it in November. We get the award in December. It'll be for you in January. So this is something maybe next August that we could work on in a more proactive way to make sure smaller not-for-profits are more aware of the opportunity. And there's other ways we can look at it. All the grants don't have to be equal. We could divide it up in a different format, to make sure that we could have more partners. But there's definitely to be considered, and it's not trying to be exclusive or anything. It did happen to be a longer-term award, but if it's not this summer, it's next. It's coming up soon that we would be reevaluating that. So we can definitely make sure to better publicize. I know earlier we were talking about some of the stuff on the website or in Rumbo or some of the Spanish newspapers. But everything that you're saying is valid, and we definitely can work towards those things.
Councilor Rosario?
Thank you, I'm all set.
Councilor Rosario, did you say you have no further questions?
No further questions.
Thank you. Councilor Rodriguez? Are there any other questions, councilors?
I couldn't hear the answer.
She said, yes, sure.
Okay, thank you.
Councilors, are there any other further questions? Hearing none, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to send it to the full council with as a committee report.
So, Councilor Rodriguez made a motion to send this to the full council as a committee report. Is there a second on that?
Second.
There is a second by Councilor Levy. We will now move to a roll call vote. Councilor De Rosario.
Yes.
Councilor Levy.
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez.
Yes.
The chair votes in affirmative. Thank you, Director Burnell. We now. You have a good night, Director. Thank you. We now move to item 822, request to expand grant funds. Welcome Center Project 20,000, funded by Savita Health, submitted by Cassandra Buffera, Acting Director of the Lawrence Public Library. Hi, Cassandra.
Hello. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you. So for this particular item, I had presented this in front of council previously. So just as a reminder to all, through a LEADS program that the previous director, Jessica Villasnovas, did, she had worked with a team to pitch a project, which was the Welcome Center. And that project was awarded through that program that she was in for $15,000 at the time. So this project that was presented for the Welcome Center would pretty much help fund a improved welcome services department, information services department in the library, and contract a consultant to resource the mapping around a 1 mile radius of the library. So these funds in particular, the $20,000, which is being funded through the Savita Health, previously known as the Mentor Health Network, who also funded previous projects for us at the library, heard of this project and were willing to continue helping us. So these funds in particular will continue funding our consultants and other miscellaneous items for this project.
Council, are there any questions? Councilors, there are no questions. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to send it to the full council for recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion to send this to the full council with favor recommendation by Councilor Rodriguez. Has been seconded by Councilor Levy. We'll move on to a roll call vote. Councilor De Rosario.
Yes.
Councilor Rosario.
Yes.
Councilor Levy.
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez.
Yes.
And the chair votes in affirmative. We now move on to our next item. Item 922, request to expend climate change grant in the amount of $2,500. Director Buffera.
Thank you so much again. So the Merrimack Watershed Council is working on a climate change project, and they will be working with us and will be allocating $2,500 of their funds to the library to purchase library materials in order for us to add to our library collection. So that's what the funds would be used for.
Councilors, are there any questions?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
So what type of material you're gonna get? You're gonna get digital material, like digital books?
Yep, so it would be books. So anything, in regards to titles, in regards to climate change. So Matthew from the Merrimack Watershed Council is going to be working with our adult reference librarian to discuss the titles that we will be adding to our collection.
And is that will be for like kids related material, or it will be more for adult, or what is it?
Yep, so the adult reference librarian will be working directly, so it's going to be towards the adults, but that's definitely could be up for discussion too with Matthew, of course. So we do a very good job in making sure that we have a variety of materials, of course, for children, teen, adults, all in that category. But I'm sure a conversation with Matthew to say if we can allocate some of these funds for other departments, he wouldn't be, against that.
Because as you know, educating the kids will be very effective for the future. So climate change is a very important topic.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Councilors, anybody else has a question? If there's no questions, is there a motion?
Motion to send it to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion to send this to the full council with favorable recommendation by Councilor Rodriguez. Has been seconded by Councilor Levy. We now move on to a roll call vote. Councilor Rosario.
Yes.
Councilor Levy.
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez.
Yes.
The chair votes in affirmative. Councilors, we are finished with our new business. Is there any item from table business that we would like to take out?
Thank you, councilors.
Thank you, Director. If there's no items from table business, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
There's a motion by Councilor Rodriguez to adjourn, second by Councilor Levy. We'll call, roll call vote. Councilor Rosario?
Yes.
Councilor Levy?
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Chair votes in affirmative. I hope you all have a good night, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Thank you.